Hello.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, good. Have I got all signers here tonight? That's good.
All signers in the building.
That might need to work. It's 2 minutes to it. Excuse me.
And it doesn't when you're sitting in here.
Yeah,
Are
that's gotta be hot. Doesn't it?
you coming out here? Because I can move down. No, but I can move down. I have a shot. You didn't get the shot?
She had both shots. Yeah, I think she had both shots.
Yeah.
When did you say you get your second shot, Mike?
A week from this coming Friday.
Oh, okay. So you got another.
Yeah, I got mine a week ago Friday.
Did you do drive through?
No, I went down to Good Sam.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. Mhm.
I hear that's what they're doing at the Centos Center. The Johnson and Johnson.
I got Pfizer. That was my.
That's what I got was the Pfizer.
Pfizer.
Because at the end of the
I'm gonna
day,
get the
I
things
didn't
out.
care.
What else should it be? Oh, that's from last week. I'm gonna mix up my previous paper. It's not good.
All right, I think we got everybody present.
Mhm. Okay. Quit.
Say when. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the North College Hill City Council meeting for April 5th. As always, we will start with our prayer for the NCH City Council. God our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can with your help and guidance. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
We'll call this meeting to order. Forgot my gavel. And we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
All right, good evening, everyone. Mr. Wald, will you please call the roll when you're ready?
Miss Blythe,
Here.
Miss Underwood, Miss Underwood. I thought I saw her.
She's on there.
Miss Underwood. Mr. Miller Novak,
I saw her also.
Present.
Miss Zorb,
Here.
Miss Hartman,
Here.
Miss Anderson.
Here.
Last call for Miss Underwood.
Miss Underwood is here. I'm sorry.
All present and accounted for.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, you should have tonight's agenda. And this would be the second agenda, not the first one.
Right.
Mr. President,
Ms. Orb,
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
motion for Ms. Zorb, second for Ms. Anderson to accept tonight's agenda as presented. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. President, under discussion, I don't know that it needs to be corrected, but I mistakenly put 1579 Galbraith Road under communications for the liquor control, and it should be 1579 Goodman.
Mr. President, can we just correct that as a typo?
I would agree with that, yes. We'll just correct it as a typo. All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Trying to think of.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yeah.
Ms. Sorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
yes,
and Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to accept the agenda passes 6-0.
Thank you. You also have meeting minutes from the 3/15/2021 meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I'll move that we adopt the minutes from the March 15th meeting.
Mr. President, I'll second that.
Motion from Ms. Anderson, second from Ms. Zorb to adopt the meeting minutes from 3:15. Any discussion? Ms. DeWald, please call the roll.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Sorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
yes,
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to adopt the minutes passes 6-0.
Thank you. Now up to communications.
Okay, for communications, we have the Mayor's Court report from March. And then I also received in the mail a liquor license for the College Station Bar and Grill at 1579 Goodman Avenue. And Ron, Mr. Mosby, I am going to need some guidance from you on this. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know, do we need a hearing? And that's what it's kind of asking. So I can get with you after the meeting.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the clerk? All right, I hear none, so we'll move on to council committees. We'll start first with budget and finance.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
we have not met, I think, since Amber last had a meeting. Our next meeting is next Monday. Same bad time, same bad place. And,
7:30.
What's that?
Yours is at 7:30.
Yeah, 7:30. There you go. So next Monday at 7:30 will be our meeting, and that's after community development, right? That's at 6:30, correct?
And that is Monday, April 12th.
That's right.
Thank you. All right, city and community development and recreation.
Mr. President, that's me. We haven't met either, and our meeting's at 6:30 at on the 12th, as you said.
At 6:30. All right, thank you.
Mr.
Next up,
President,
public safety. Mr. Miller Novak,
can I sneak back in real quick?
go ahead.
Did anybody on the finance committee, does anybody have the meeting minutes from the last meeting, or is that Amber that have?
Mr. President?
Ms. Orb.
I do, to answer your question, no, I do not have the minutes, and I had requested that Ms. Bailey provide those minutes before she left office, and I thought that was why she was getting an extended period of time access to her email account. Did that not happen?
Well, they haven't been sent to me. I can shoot her a text message after the meeting, or I don't know. Ron, do you have? I mean, does she still have her account set up?
Mr. Miller Novak, yes, and our IT consultant is coming in tomorrow, so we will be able to get access to those records, and then whichever ones need to be transferred, we can do that.
Okay, Grady.
Is that all, Mr. Miller Novak?
Yes, thank you.
Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pretty much, our last meeting was the fourth Monday, well, March 22nd. And at the public safety meeting, we had a very spirited and great discussion about the fire levy. There were a lot of questions, I think, that were answered. Chief Fells was there. Several other community members, stakeholders were there as well. But Chief Fells, I think, answered a lot of questions and kind of made some distinctions about the fire levy from some of our council members who had questions about kind of the amount of the levy. We took a look at specifically the information that was sent to us from the auditor's office. We discussed that. And I believe even that the levy, the amount was reduced based on the amount that was sent from the auditor's office. So that's pretty much what the entire meeting was about, was just the fire levy. And our next meeting is April 26th at 7:30.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Next up, Rules and Public Policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We talked about legislative procedure, and Mr. Miller Novak kind of, when we talked about this, we were talking about just kind of how it's really important that we send all legislation to the law director, and that he has an opportunity to review it, and that can happen anywhere in the 3 reading process. So he also talked about some of the pitfalls of simply reusing the same legislation that we've previously used, and how mistakes can happen as a result of that. And Mr. Miller Novak said that we needed to probably just kind of need to update the council rules. Ms. Zorb and Ms. Anderson also had some good suggestions about that. So, the consensus was, I think, that we will try to address that process in the council rules. And then we talked about the council rules and how, Ms. Anderson actually asked how we amend the rules. And I suggested we have a committee of the whole meeting, at which point we all realized that 6 council members are actually on the Rules and Public Policy Committee. So we are just going to discuss the council rules at the next committee meeting and see if we can't figure out how to fix that portion of the rules that we need to fix. We also talked about the process for a committee meeting minutes and agendas. And we realized that there was some discussion about the document retention policy, and we figured out that the current retention policy is permanent. So Mr. Miller Novak definitely suggested that we definitely need to update our retention policy. Ms. Zorb suggested that we need a central repository for all of the documents. And Ms. Anderson was explaining to us Generation Xers about digital documents and how that was probably the best way to proceed. So there was a lot of discussion about that, and we're going to also incorporate that into our next meeting. I will send the sections of the council rules for that we want to focus on before the next committee meeting. Mr. Miller Novak will ask Mr. Dieters whether or not we can use the videos that ICRC records for us when people request minutes for, as a public records request, because that wasn't clear from the case law or from what, he knew at the time. And the meeting was adjourned at 7:28. Our next meeting for Rules and Public Policy is at 6:30 on April 26th.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. All right. Are there any ad hoc reports? I hear no ad hoc reports, so we'll move on to administrative reports.
Sorry, Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, just a quick announcement. The Uniform Progress Committee is meeting this Saturday via Zoom, and we are now set up. So Ron, it would be this Saturday we were set up to live stream the same way we do any other committees of council, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So
Mr.
you can watch
President.
the movie.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Well,
I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm having a difficult time. It seems like Mr. Miller Novak is fading in and out. Could you please repeat the name of the committee?
Sure. Can you hear me okay now? I might have to change to a different headset if not.
Go ahead.
It's the Uniform Progress Committee,
Thank you.
temporarily until someone thinks of a name with more moxie.
Okay.
what time is that again, sir?
9:30 a.m. But it would be, so Ron, it would be stored to watch the same way our other meetings are as well, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other reports? All right. We'll go to the administrative reports and turn it over to Ms. Nichols with the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a couple of things. I had a question for, I believe, anyone on the safety committee. I know that you guys we had talked about speed humps, and I was wondering where we are in the process of that. Is it going to happen? Because I have a couple of emails and I would like to get out an answer if there is any. And the other thing I had was the city cleanup day, if everyone will remember, is April 24th from 9 to 12. Volunteers will be able to enjoy a lunch down at Kremer's afterwards. I remember Ms. Blythe had asked if they could get more than one slice of pizza. I know Mr. Mosby is working on that, so we can send them home a little half full, not just with a little snack. Well, it's a snack either way. And then the last thing, I did have a very good meeting with Ms. Anderson last week. She is the new chair of City and Community Development and Recreation. And we're going to work on something that I've been wanting to do, but because of, again, COVID, we couldn't get it done, a calendar for the year. And hopefully we can get that taken care of, and just getting the Recreation Commission back together, adding new members to that so we can move on from there. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I don't have a question, but I do would like to tell the mayor that the Public Safety Committee have been really focused on we hadn't talked about the speed humps recently because we have been more focused on the fire levy, but I believe that that's still something on our radar, but I will definitely put it back on the agenda because we did find information about the ones that are movable and removable so that they can kind of move them around.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Underwood. I just was considering the weather, and I'm starting to see a lot of more kids, and so they're starting to question it again. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will now turn it over to Mr. Mosby with the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I hope everyone had an enjoyable Easter or Passover, if you celebrate either one. I know that it was good weather, so hopefully everyone had a memorable time celebrating. So I do have a few items. Number one, a bit of good news. We had received information that a grant was awarded for the installation of the second set of electric vehicle charging stations. So we will be working on that here in the very near future. You should actually probably see those installed probably sometime around no later than the end of the summer for sure. With that, those of you who came into the building, when you were coming through the parking lot, you may have noticed that there was a white vehicle that said Mike Albert Leasing on there. That is actually a Nissan Leaf. They had allowed us to use that for a day to basically test drive. So it is something that we are looking at as far as considering perhaps leasing an electric vehicle ourselves, specifically one that could be used for our code enforcement officer. That would be where we would begin to do that. But I can tell you that it is a very quiet ride. I believe that it absolutely conforms to the objectives that have been set forth by the mayor regarding, cleanliness and because obviously it doesn't put out really any emissions. And as I mentioned, it is a very quiet ride. And of course, it could be charged up right here at the at our electric vehicle charging station. So that will be on display basically until tomorrow because they're going to pick it up. But I do think that it could be a very exciting time regarding how we may be able to make our own entrance into the electric vehicle fleet.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you a question, Ron, that I'm curious about regarding the charging station. When someone comes to the charging station, do they use their credit card to pay for the charging? And then when they charge the cars, what is the benefit to North College Hill? Do we get a certain percentage of the sale? How do they pay for it? And how do we benefit from having it there? Just curious.
Sure. Those are good questions. The answer to your first question is yes, they have an app on their phone that would A, tell them where it is, and then B, that would allow them to charge up, and it does get charged to a credit card. And then secondly, yes, we are able to receive a portion of the profits that come from that particular transaction or those particular transactions. So yes, we do receive a portion of that.
That's good. Thank you. Just curious.
Okay. Second, I sent something out earlier today. I'm not sure if everybody had a chance, if each of you had a chance to look at it, but it was a report that was set forth, or excuse me, that was drafted by a company that we use for buildings and inspections, and it's called XPEX. But the building inspector came out to take a look at the building located at 1951 Goodman, which we all know is more commonly as the baseball building at Dunley Memorial Park. In that report, basically, what he stated is that there would be a lot of work that would need to be done. He talked about the extensive damage to the roof, damage to the interior walls. He also mentioned, in addition to some of the debris and mold, but I think the bottom line was that he said that basically it would cost more to repair it than the building itself is worth. So what I would like to respectfully ask council tonight, based on the results of that report, would be to reconsider the motion that had been passed earlier, directing administration to wait for a period of approximately 90 days. As I mentioned to you earlier, we do have someone who was already prepared to raise the building. And we had already agreed on a particular price. So we would be ready to go with that if council does reconsider that motion. So I would put that forth as a request for tonight. Number three, you have before you tonight also, there are two pieces of legislation. One of them is a resolution that allows me to enter into a contract with ODOT for the safety improvements. This particular piece of legislation is something that obviously had been discussed before, but once again is a formality that is required by the Ohio Department of Transportation. Again, I do have a request on that tonight, and that would be that since council has already approved the project, that you would go ahead and suspend the readings for tonight so that we can get that passed. That would allow ODOT to continue on their schedule to bid the contract out, and then they would be able to get started on the particular safety improvements by the summertime. Finally, I know that this is probably good news for some, but as I mentioned to you via email, the computers are in. Those of you who are here, if you are interested in receiving or picking up one of your computers, you can just let me know if you desire to do so after the meeting, and I can make sure that you get that signed out and that you'll have your particular device. We did purchase devices for each seat on council. So there are a total of 8, including one for the president. I've already been informed by a couple of members that they did not desire to sign one out, and that's fine. We'll just keep those until or in the event that there are members of the seats switch. So we will have those available for any new members of council. And Mr. President, that's all I have.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I have a question for Mr. Mosby, if he doesn't mind. I was just looking over the inspection photos, and I saw the paintings, and it reminded me, I think Ms. Zorb or Miss Bailey requested last time if there was a way that those paintings could be preserved even if the building was torn down. And I was just curious if that was an option or if you guys had looked into that.
Are you referring to the paintings that are on the outside of the building?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, those are painted on, if they're the
Okay.
ones that I remember correctly, they're painted onto the building. So if we raise the building, those paintings would go with it.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb was first.
That's cool.
Mr. Mosby, I just now am reading this document also. I did not have time to read it today. It says the structure could exceed the value, or excuse me, the cost to restore the structure could exceed the value of the structure, but it doesn't tell us how much the structure is valued at. Do you happen to know that dollar amount?
No, I do not at this particular time.
I question how they can make that determination if they don't know how much. I mean, there's no figures on this.
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, we do know how much it would cost for us to demolish the building, which would be about $15,000. We have had some estimates, and he didn't put them on this particular report because his role was basically to inspect the building to just to see to what extent the repairs would be necessary. But I know that when we were talking about perhaps putting on the roof, that clearly exceeded $20,000 if we had to do an entire replacement of the roof, and that in and of itself would be more than what it would cost for us to demolish the building.
So I guess I am 360 degrees confused right now. So the first time this project was discussed, we had heard it was in the ballpark, and it was just by chance that we heard about it, but it was going to be $15,000. Well, then at the last meeting, I thought I heard you say that you got a grant for $50,000, not $15,000. So now tonight you're saying it's $15,15 again. How much did you get for the grant to tear this down?
So the question that you're asking, I can provide a little more clarity. Community Development Block Grant provides funding for us, for the city. And when they do, that funding that was made available was as a result of a request that we had put in. And they did say that they would provide up to $50,000. Now, if that money is not used for that, it can also be used for something else. But I think the more important issue is, if you're asking the difference between the $15,000 and what it would cost if we were to use their money to demolish it, there are a lot of factors. Number one, the $15,000 was a quote that we received outside of those dollars. In other words, these would be dollars that we would use from within our own budget, as opposed to the CDBG budget. If we use the CDBG budget, we do have to follow federal guidelines, which means that in addition to making sure that they are subject to the I believe it's the Bacon Act. Please forgive me, I may be wrong, but it's subject to a federal act. There, it would be significantly more for us to use the federal dollars in order to demolish the building, because we have to conform to the federal guidelines if we did use the federal dollars. So the $15,000 that you heard you heard me report to you before was based on the quotes that we received outside of that. So it would be more economical for us to use the quotes that we used and not use the federal dollars than it would be for us to use federal dollars.
Can I just rehash what I think I heard, because I'm still not sure I'm clear. So if we use our money, and I'm using air quotes, it's all everyone's money. If we use city money, it costs $15,000 to tear it down. If we use the grant money, it's going to cost we have an allotment of $50,000 that we could use to tear it down, and it could potentially cost that whole 50. Is that true?
It would certainly be more. It would be up to 50,000. It would certainly be more than the 15 that we have already received a quote on, excuse me. Because we would have to meet the federal requirements.
So the current plan is not to use grant money to tear it down.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I said, so the grant money would be instead used for the splash pad and park repairments, that would be at Dunley, right?
It could be, yes. I mean, I've already talked to the county. I'm sorry, Miss Anderson. I apologize. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. I have already talked to the county about how we could reallocate those dollars, and that would be a legitimate use of those funds.
Awesome.
Any other questions for the city administrator?
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Well, I think, I feel like I have a question and maybe want to clarify something. My thought was, or my understanding was that we had always planned on using $15,000 essentially out of our general fund to handle tearing down the building. That was the plan. We put the pause button on for someone to do some homework about something, which honest to God, I can't remember what that exactly was, but that's why we motioned to put a pause on it. I thought it was 2 months, not 90 days, but I guess I can be mistaken. The grant money that we received of $50,000, I thought the hope is that we would use that as leverage or seed money to get further grants so we could build a brand new splash park. At least these are the ideas that had been discussed. Am I wrong about that?
No, sir, Mr. Miller-Novak. I was just clarifying that when we were notified that the funds were awarded to us, when they were awarded to us, a portion of that was for as they had stated, a portion of that was for the demolition of the building. However, I will also add another point since you brought that up. The funds that have been awarded to us in this particular most recent cycle, those funds would not become available to us until 2023. So if we were waiting to use federal dollars in order to demolish it, we wouldn't be able to do that until 2023.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Right. So logistically, to me, I guess this is not really a question as much as my own personal advocacy, but to me, it would make more sense in the meantime to demolish it. So when we get the grant money in 2023, plus all the other grants we hope to get in the next year and a half or 2 years, we'd be ready to start building in 2023 because everything would be, the canvas would be blank, so to speak, right? Tabula rasa, as the Romans would say.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
if I can just add on to Mr. Miller-Novak's point. Also, if we were to keep that building up and we wanted to add, like, let's say a locker room and a bathroom for the splash pad, which a lot of them have, you would have to change like the entire building to comply with
ADA.
government. Thank you. Yes, with all of those.
ADA.
So I think I agree that it would be in our best interest to knock it down and start on that fresh slate.
Having said that, I'm sorry, Mr. President, sorry.
Miller Novak.
Having said that, I guess, I would like to motion to unpause the pause button. I guess a motion to rescind our prior motion, or I guess we don't necessarily need to do that. The motion could essentially give the administration the authority to act on whatever prior bid it had. Am I wrong about that, or wrong? What exactly are you asking us to do?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zor.
so I'm looking at my notes from the March 15th meeting, and it says that there was $105,000 from the grant and to be received in 2023. 55,000 was to go to the Dumley demo building, 50,000 for the splash pad, and 50,000 for traffic calming. So if we're not going to use that 55 for the demo, are we now putting 105 into the splash pad?
Mr. President?
Mr. Mosby?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zorb, I'm not sure that I follow you. I just need clarification because I heard you say 3 numbers and there should only be 2.
Yeah,
We were awarded
those are the three
105.
that you gave us. Those were the 3 numbers that you gave us on the March 15th council meeting.
Right, but I didn't give you 155. I gave you 105, which would be 55.
Right, that's what I said. 55, 50, and 50. Yes.
That would be 100.
That would be $155,000.
You're right. So I guess, I don't know.
So
I wrote
okay.
down what you said.
So
it adds
having
up to
said
100.
that, if we go back to the original CDBG grant, the 55,000, as you pointed out, would be able to go toward, or would have been able to go toward the demolition. If we do the demolition with our own funds, then those funds can be reallocated for the establishment of the splash park. And as Mr. Miller Novak very astutely pointed out, what we would do is to use that as an opportunity to obtain matching funds between now and the time that those dollars are awarded.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWalt.
I'm going to read to you what I wrote down. And when I listened to the video, I try to capture as much as actually what has been said and keep it in a concise form. And I have in my meeting minutes that the city was informed that they received $105,000 in the CDBG grant money. 55,000 would go for Dumley Park, which includes building demolition and creation of a splash park. Now, there was conversation at that meeting that realizes that 55,000 would not be enough to create. I mean, it would be enough to create, but not to make its fruition into a full splash park. So they knew that there other monies were going to be needed. And then the 50,000 was reported that at this particular time would go for traffic calming studies, and the funds will not be available to 2023. So I don't know if that opens up any kind of clarification, but that's how the money was kind of divided up. So 55,000 for Dumley Park, which includes a demolition and a creation of, but not a fully functioning park. And then $50,000 for the traffic calming. I don't know if that helps the issue. Did that help anything at all? Somebody can say no if they want to.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I mean, that's pretty close. I mean, essentially, if you think about the 105 that was total, essentially half could go towards, we discussed half going towards traffic calming, the other half towards splash park work. That doesn't necessarily have to require demolition. We can use our funds to do demolition and then have $55,000 that we'll get in 2023 to use. And of course we can, as we were trying to explain earlier, we can use that because a lot of grant money says, hey, we'll give you $50,000 if you can come up with 10 of your own, right? Whereas equal match grants and things like that, the idea was to leverage our current grant recipient funds to kind of seed the collection of further grants and use it as match money. Either way, I did have a question on the table for Ron, because, you know, I want to move on this. I think it's a great thing for the city. I mean, when it comes to the value of the building there, I don't think you have to be a real estate agent to look at it and say most likely worthless. Because what other function would it necessarily have anyways? If the property itself has any value, it's probably the green space that would have value, and that doesn't really have value. I don't think that land has any value to anybody but us. So the reality is, if we have this goal of a splash park, I don't want half measures. I want it to be a beautiful splash park. I don't want us hedging. Let's tear it down. I've already volunteered to bring a sledgehammer and take the first few whacks at it if wanted. I'm no Robert Irvin, but I can swing a sledgehammer if needed. So I would love to do it. I want to get it out of there. I've said it in past meetings. Everybody I've talked to hates the building. They'd like to see it gone without even knowing that we're talking about a splash park maybe in the future. So it's an eyesore. Let's tear it down.
So back to your point there, Mr. Miller Novak, you asked Mr. Mosby a question, and if I recall, the question was, what was he actually asking for here, correct?
Yeah, my understanding is, I guess we could motion to unpause the pause. What wording do we need for you to do your thing?
Mr. President?
Mr. Mosby?
Okay, as far as wording is concerned, obviously, that's the pleasure of council. What I know is that the last motion was for us to halt any activity, and particularly demolition, until such time as basically a period of 90 days. So in essence, if you were going to say a motion, I would just say basically what I would be asking is the council give me permission, grant me the permission to continue to move forward on the demolition of the building located at 1951 Goodman. You can either say continue or proceed with, but that would be what I request from council.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I motion that administration proceed with the demolition of the building at Dunley Park. Does that work?
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak?
I couldn't said it any better myself. I second the motion.
I'm blushing.
All right, so if I got this right, then we're moving to have the city administrator proceed with the demolition of the building at Doomley Park. Sound good?
Yep, that's what I have.
All right, call the roll, please.
Ms. Blythe?
Yes.
Let me get a cheat sheet out because now I forgot the rotation of where everybody is in the lineup. Hang on. Okay, Ms. Blythe is a yes, and we have Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
No.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
We have a passage of 5-1 for the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. DeWald.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak?
Ron, I want video, slow motion. I want pictures. I want to know when it's happening. Let me know. Do a great job. I'm really excited about all this stuff. I'm going to keep saying I'm excited because I love to see a splash park there. So do it right.
Thank
Mr.
you,
President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I think we were discussing before that, are there, behind the building, there's trees that are gonna need to be trimmed once the building comes down, because it's in an alley?
I'm sorry, were you asking that question of me, Ms.?
Yeah, I think we had
Yep.
discussed that there's trees behind the building, so we're gonna have to either cut the trees down or keep them trim without the building being there.
Well, that's actually a good question. So just to inform council, what basically we would do is this. First, we would demolish the building. Second, I would, in fact, I've already informed our city engineer, JMA, that we would need to plan out or look at what the splash park would look like. So basically, we would need a design that would go into that area, which would now be vacant. And so when you're referring to the trees, obviously green space is very important to us. So we would actually look at, if we did need to take down any of the trees, obviously it would be as few as possible. I have not talked to them about that yet, so I cannot say that they would have to come down. In fact, to be honest with you, if I'm where I'm thinking they're located right now, I don't know that would be a requirement. But again, once they put a drawing together and we discuss it, if for some reason there is some necessity, I would definitely let council know.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I would also suggest that you keep in mind, trees provide shade. If you're putting in a splash park, you're going to need some shade for the children.
Yes, Ms. Zorb, I agree. And that's why I was saying the only way that we would do that is if for some reason we absolutely had to. And as I was just telling Ms. Blythe, I'm not sure that we would actually have to remove any of those trees. I agree with you.
Any other questions for Mr. Mosby? All right, next item on the agenda is the law director's report. Mr. Dieters is currently in a meeting that has run long. He said he will be logging in with us when that is done. So if it's all right with everyone, I would like to push his presentation till whenever he logs in. So we'll skip that and move to the finance director's report. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have a whole lot that I want to touch on tonight. I just want to remind council that the first quarter report will be coming out in May, so be looking for that. The February financial report will be coming as well later this week. And next week we'll be touching on just some of the important ins and outs of the tax budget that we'll be expecting to submit. I want to say, well, actually it'll be probably before council, hopefully sometime in April, so that there's enough time for everyone to vote on it before the deadline. So maybe April, May, I believe council will see that. So that's all I have.
And please remind me, what is the actual deadline on the tax budget?
The deadline for voting, I want to say, is the 15th of July.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Hall?
Mr. President, I have one.
Ms. Zorb?
Ms. Hall, could you make sure that everyone, or just announce when the tax returns are due? I think I saw an
Yes.
extension deadline. Will you report that now?
You're correct. Yes, Rita did move the deadline to May 17th and following suit with the state. So there is an extension for filing your municipal taxes. So again, that deadline is May 17th, 2021.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hall, and thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Zorb. Anything else for Ms. Hall? Hearing none, we'll move on to call of members, starting with Ms. Blythe.
Just want to let everybody know that tomorrow, let's see, April 6th is the first day of early voting in Hamilton County. So I'll probably drop by there one day this week to early vote on Smith Road. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blythe. Ms. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I hope everyone had a really nice and healthy holiday on Sunday. And I don't have anything else at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Mr. Miller Novak?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Zorb?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman?
I have nothing at this time as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. And Ms. Anderson?
Thank you. So next Monday is the first City and Community Development and Recreation Committee where I will be the chair. So if anybody has any suggestions or ideas or concerns that they want me to put on the agenda, just let me know. I'm going to try to get the agenda out before Friday. So if you can let me know before Friday, that'd be awesome, but I can always be flexible. There's also going to be a produce pop-up at 3 on the 12th, which is again next Monday at 3 o'clock. And it's at, if you guys know where the middle school is, that's where like the food pantry part is. And the produce pop-up is something that is open to all people and all members of North College Hill, not just the students. And they have awesome produce. We got some really good avocados last month, so check that out for sure. They also posted that they need volunteers for that event. So if anybody knows anybody who's looking to volunteer or needs hours, let Kim Stewart know. She's always open. Also, as Mayor Nichols said, the cleanup day on the 24th, I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to getting out in the sun. So I hope to see some of you guys there. Other than that, I don't really have anything. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
could you say the date, Ms. Anderson, could you say the date for the produce pop-up again? I missed that.
Yes,
Sorry.
that is, no, you're okay. It's a week from today on the 12th at 3 o'clock. They normally just go until like 5 or 6, but honestly, I'm sure if you showed up the next day and asked for some of that produce, Kim will not turn you away, that's for sure. So, but yes, on the 12th at 3.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move to legislation. Ms. DeWald?
Our first piece of legislation, Resolution 10, 2021. A resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Underwood.
I move that we suspend the second and third reading for Resolution 10-2021.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
All right, motion by Ms. Underwood. Second by Ms. Anderson to suspend second and third readings on Resolution 10, 2021. Discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
was this discussed in a committee meeting?
Was this discussed in a committee meeting?
Mr. President, I am right now trying to remember if it was or not. I mean, we definitely had discussion, but I don't think it was. I know that the fire levy took up most of the time for this. However, as I mentioned earlier, this particular piece of legislation is a formality that is required by ODOT. It is basically a reiteration of what has already been passed. But they do want this particular formal resolution so that they will be able to continue with the safety project. So it isn't, in fact, the only thing it expounds on again in there is that the funding for this is basically provided by the Ohio Department of Transportation. There is nothing that is required on our part as far as financing or funding is concerned, unless we wanted to do something that's outside the scope of the project, which I have not put anything in there that exceeds the present scope of the project. So this would allow us to continue to stay on track with ODOT's timeline for going out to bid and getting the project started.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Mr. Mosby, I want to make sure I understand. This is a part of the Safe Routes to School and that entire process that you had explained to us, correct?
Yes, Ms. Underwood. I'm chuckling only because again, I don't want to get caught up in minutia.
Right. No, and
Okay.
as I recall, I mean, my
You
point
are
is
correct.
that we did discuss that in the Public Safety Committee, because I can specifically recall arguing about the fact whether or not we were going to have to spend any money on this project, and you were telling us that we would not.
Yes, the project is so just for clarity, the project itself absolutely was discussed in public safety. The question that I thought Ms. Zorb was asking is whether or not this particular piece of legislation itself. And I think that the answer to that is no. However, based on what you just said, and as I mentioned in my explanation, this is simply clarifying our relationship, and it's a formality that ODOT requires so that they can continue to move forward on the project.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion from Ms. Underwood and a second from Ms. Anderson to suspend the second and third readings on Resolution 10-2021. Please call the roll.
Ms. Blythe,
No.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yep.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
So I'm not good with numbers. So we have 6 members.
It was 5-1.
We have 5-1, but we need 6 to suspend if we had 7. So we need 5 to suspend, so we pass. Thanks for letting me talk that out.
We need 6.
We still need 6 to this.
Need 6.
Oh,
A percentage. Hard number.
Need 6 to
hard
suspend.
number. Okay, so motion to suspend fails.
All right. Please continue to the next piece of legislation.
Resolution 11, 2021, a resolution determining to proceed with levying a replacement tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation. First reading.
All right, thank you.
And that's all we have in legislation.
Thank you very much, Ms. DeWald. All right, so the next item on the agenda is comments from the audience. There was no one here in the building with us, and there are no attendees. So that will take us to old business. And if I may start, there were some committees that we had asked everyone to consider joining in Ms. Bailey's absence, or not absence, what's the proper term?
Resignation.
Yes,
Resignation.
yes. In lieu of her resignation, there are committees that we need to get filled. OKI, TIF committee, the Community Reinvestment Area Committee, and the CIC, which is appointed by the mayor. I think that's the complete list of what we did not get filled at our last meeting.
That agrees with my notes.
So one is an appointment, the others are volunteers. We need volunteers.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson,
I'm sorry, can you repeat those again? Which ones are volunteer?
the OKI, the TIF, and the CRA.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize, I don't remember what TIF stands for.
No, it's okay.
And Ms. Bailey did give pretty good descriptions of what the requirements were and frequency of meetings and other things for all those at the last meeting.
Mr. President,
I had Ms. Blythe first.
for CIC, the mayor asked me to sit in on my first meeting to see if I was interested in doing that. And for some reason, the meeting was canceled a couple weeks ago. So I plan on sitting in to see if I'm interested in the CIC.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, I think the TIF, I think what you're talking about, TIF, isn't that, Ron, does that refer to like TIF as in like TIFs that get granted from the county?
I want to say yes, but I don't remember what the T, the I, the F stand for. I apologize.
It's tax incremental
Financing.
financing. Thank you.
Financing, okay.
All right. I'm not going to continue to sit here and wait for volunteers, so we'll move on to other old business.
Mr. President.
Ms. Anderson.
Okay, I think that this would count as old business, but I could be wrong. So if you guys remember, the Mayor Nichols had vetoed the council's vote to make the recreation director a volunteer position. And I was wondering and if I understand correctly, I think right now the position is just kind of halted. So I think there is a recreation director, but there's no money, like there's no anything going on in it, if I understand that correctly. So my kind of question with the old business of that is, does anybody know what we would do next? I'm not sure what we would do next, and I don't want to make the wrong move.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I think the chair of the Community Development and Recreation Committee should take the lead on that, and I will happily follow her lead.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
So,
President.
sorry, go ahead, Ms. Orr.
I read something that.
I was just gonna say, would I like suggest something to do with that? Well, I'm not even sure what I would do.
So my suggestion was going to be, since we are now in a new calendar year, that perhaps the chair of finance should start working on a new salary ordinance. And that could be included in there if that's the route you were trying to, if you're trying to go the financial route, it should probably be in the finance meeting. I'm not sure I'm hitting the target of where you're going with your question, but are you trying to look for a finance director or excuse me, I said the wrong word. Forgive me, Ms. Hall. That was not what I was trying to say.
Well,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, I
Recreation
wouldn't
director.
be looking for one. I mean, that would be like up to administration, but just to put kind of money in that pot so that we can have one. But yeah, I guess that would be finance. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller Novak, that I just accidentally put someone on your list, but I can work with you on it.
Yeah, but I think we have the tax budget coming up, don't we?
Does anybody understand him?
Can
I
you
mean-
repeat that, Mr.?
I'm sorry. I think we have the tax budget coming up, so I don't know. I mean, honestly, guys, theoretically, everything has a financial component, right? There's nothing we do that doesn't cost money. Just because something has money involved or will come from the budget doesn't mean that any other committee shouldn't feel free to address it. It can always be moved to the finance committee after it, or it can be moved to council as a whole. And we all have the ability to weigh in on money, not just the finance committee. So, yeah, for me, it feels a little bit wonky because I think finance committee is going to be digging into the tax budget our next meeting, or beginning to.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
so just for kind of like I guess kind of clarification. So would it be appropriate for finance committee to kind of redefine what they want, or like possibly more clearly define what they want a recreation director to do, and then make a suggestion for a salary or a payment and then pass it off to finance?
Mr. President.
Miller Novak.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, we can do it either way. I mean, recreation can come up with the responsibilities. They can propose a number, and it could get sent at that point in time to finance, or it could just be sent to council as a whole. Marjorie, I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, for instance, we talked about the fire levy and public safety. Obviously, there's financial components to that. So, I personally think, because you're talking about a recreation developer, and that's community and recreation committee, for me, that's round peg, round hole. Why don't you decide, what you envision the position to be and responsibilities. And at that point in time, come to the next council meeting and just say, this is it, this is what we recommend for a salary. And council can decide whether or not they want to move on it at that point in time or move it to finance.
Thank you all for your suggestions and for your help. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Miller Novak. Any other old business? Hearing none, we will move to new business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I have a question. I'm sure, I don't know whether I missed something or what. Is there a new bar opening on Goodman Avenue or Galbraith Road?
It's on Goodman.
Is it?
Mr. President,
Mr. Mosby.
yes, just to be clear, to answer Ms. Underwood's question, there is a permit that is being considered. It is a liquor license, and of course, those have to be approved. So yes, potentially that we would be looking at a restaurant moving into where I guess we would know it as like the old Gears, the nursery area that would be there. So, but yes, it's supposed to be a restaurant that would serve alcohol.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby.
Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
Mr. Mosby, I know the last time someone requested a liquor license that the police department did, for lack of a better term, like a background check on all persons involved or all businesses involved. Do you know if that has happened for this particular location?
Mr. President?
Mr. Mosby.
Yes, yes, I do, Ms. Zorb. It was done. and all of the principals had their background checks done by our police department, and the chief has confirmed with me that they are satisfactory.
Is it possible for council to get a copy of that report?
Yes, I guess the only thing I need to do is to get a copy of that. Of course, that has to go up to Columbus, but yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Miller Novak.
Ron, since we didn't suspend readings today, and you mentioned something about a timetable on the safer roads matter with the state, and we don't have another council meeting for 2 weeks and then 2 weeks thereafter, do we need to have special meetings to get it done? Because I would like it to be timely.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mosby.
First, thank you for asking, Mr. Milanovac. I actually cannot answer that question. I have to call ODOT tomorrow so that I can get the specifics on what that would mean. If council would allow me, then once I get that answer, I can send out an email to council to let you know, because I do know that the plan was to let meaning they wanted to go out to bid for the project this month. So I can find out what those dates are, and then as you pointed out, Mr. Milanovac, whether or not a special meeting would be necessary.
Mr. President.
Mr. Milanovac.
Well, if it is, I would suggest that my understanding is, I think in our council rules, that the mayor can still call a special meeting. If it's required, she should use that power. I request 7 or 7:30, please, so I can do that on time. Most weeknights work for me, except for Thursdays. So I want to make sure it's done and done in a timely fashion. I'm a little bit disappointed with the suspension.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak, you've trailed off a couple times. Sorry, sir, but yeah, we missed some of that.
Man, I'm sorry. I'm going to use a different headset next time. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Then what I suggested is if Mr. Mosby finds out that a special meeting is required, it would be nice if the mayor would just use her power to call a special meeting. I like 7 p.m. or later, so I can get here. Thursdays don't work for me, but I really want to get this done. I'm a bit disappointed to suspend readings so we could get it done in a timely fashion. So I would support moving on it.
Thank you, sir. Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Nichols.
once Mr. Mosby makes his phone call and get the information, then we can go from there with setting a meeting.
Okay.
And then, Mr. President,
Ms. DeWolf.
I wasn't prepared to look for anything in the city council rules. But is this the one where I would need to go to the doors and put things? And would everybody be willing to get an email as a notification rather than something on their door? This is not the meeting.
Only if the council calls the meeting.
Oh, if the mayor calls us, she gets to go door to door? No. Okay. Thanks.
So clarification for that question then was that if the mayor calls the meeting, then there has to be notification at the door of each. I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's my understand and it depends on who wants notification at their house, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
So people
Right.
have abstained from that.
Okay. So those of us that have already said we don't require to be notified at our door, then you don't have to notify us.
The rule has always been if an administration calls it, administration does the notices. If council calls it, council does the notices.
Okay.
Kind of
I'm following you
siloed
now.
that way.
Is that in the
President-
council rules?
Mr. President,
So, Mr. Miller Novak,
regardless of the notice that goes to the council, which FYI, I'm always fine with email, text message, or whatever. But regardless of that, because it is a special meeting under the Open Meetings Act, 24 hours notice, our charter requires a notice on the administrative building and on our website and Facebook.
all right, thank you. So I have been informed that Mr. Dieters is not going to be attending with us this evening, so we will push the presentation to our next meeting on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb,
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
motion for Ms. Zorb to adjourn,
Mr. President, I'll second the motion.
seconded by Ms. Anderson. Please call the roll.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Wald. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Ms. Zorb ran and grabbed it for me.
Oh.
She didn't really wrap in my knuckles anymore.